20 degrees. So we talk about cold and hot.
Wayne, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Welcome to Seneca Studios Open Studios Night for November 10th, 2023. We're thrilled to have Rees Bowen with us this month. We're going to feature him for some demonstrations tonight. We want to take a second just to talk with him a little bit and to thank him for being here, man. Thank you so much for coming to demonstrate your skills. Rees has been blowing glass here for some time now, real consistently, and he's does some really unique work. You can see some of it behind him. But Rees, I want to just give you a second to just introduce yourself to everybody and to let us know where you come from. You know, how'd you get here?
Yeah, so I took glass blowing classes at Texas Tech University. Bill Bagley taught me. Blew glass I took one class and I was hooked. So I was in architecture school, so I just kept taking the classes over and over again. Went to London and did some glass blowing there. Came back, opened up a studio.
What year is this?
I was 94.
94, okay.
When we opened up, when I started working at Hickory Street with Jim Bowen and several other people. Started my own studio in probably, must have been 2000 for 10 years. And then closed it down and have just been kind of guest visiting and guest blowing at other places. And came here 2-3 years ago. Was lucky enough to find you guys and have been coming mostly weekly, I guess.
Yeah, you've been super consistent and your stuff just keeps getting bigger and better. It's fantastic. It's a cool journey because I was an architecture student myself and found glass at UTA. And Jim Bowen started that program. And I think it was 95 or so that we actually went to Hickory Street.
Yeah.
And it was really the first time I'd gone anywhere else to watch some people blow glass. And I saw you and Jim and several other artists who were working out there blow glass. So it's always interesting the journeys that we go through and how it all kind of comes back around. So it's thrilling to have you here today. You've got some really cool work. Tell us a little about it.
Well, a lot of the work that I am focused on has to do with the patterns, the textures, the colors, and ultimately the form, just because of the way the material of glass is so unique, it's so fluid. So I like to play off that and try to showcase there's just so many things you can do with this material. Every time I make one piece, I think of 10 or 12 different other pieces I could make. So I don't know how I'll ever be able to explore all the possibilities with this material, but it's an incredible material. So I also like sharing that enthusiasm with other people.
Well, and that's what Seneca Studios is all about. So it's a really great fit to have you here tonight. We're going to get started here pretty quick. What's your plan? What are you going to make tonight?
I think I'm going to make some, we're going to make a large platter, we're going to make an oval type piece, and then something really fluid. All of these are going to have spiral wraps, and then we'll do some optic wraps, and I'll put some twists in them. So it ought to be pretty entertaining.
All right. Well, we're thrilled to have you here. Thanks again. It takes a team, and I want to thank the team who's here tonight. Jim's here. We have Heidi and Kevin and Tatara and Amy and Kanan and Brandy, and it really takes a lot to put together this organization and all the programming that we do in the community. So check us out online. If you're in the area, come on down tonight. We'll be manning the chat, so ask some questions if you want. But thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right.
Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to holler at me. My name is Clifton, and our featured artist is Rees Bowen. We're thrilled to have Rees here tonight. He's going to blow, the plan is for 3 pieces. This is the first one, so we'll be working probably until about 9 o'clock. This one will probably, the process will accelerate as they continue to get the color where they want it. So Rees is centering, and he's making sure he's in the right spot. And then T's going to get this little bit of white, just the right temperature, and she's going to come over and make the connection. So like I said earlier, it's a very team-oriented activity, And so they're constantly communicating. They've been working together for about a year now, a little over a year, and they've been making this kind of work and putting these wraps on. So they've got their timing down pretty well. This is always a very fun thing to see, because you can kind of see that it just trails off. Depending on how far away you are, see how Tatar is backed up just a little bit there for a moment? So now there's this thread of white glass that's wrapped perfectly. Ooh, some of it ripped off. So the temperatures were a little off there. The breeze is affecting it. In that last little moment, the last little trail of it didn't quite fuse and tack together. And so in that final moment, usually when you pull, it gets really thin really fast and it trails off. But that's all right. Rees is going to put 2 more wraps on top of this. And so this wrap is going to get influenced and affected, and so will the next one and the next one. So we could just take this and dump it in the bucket and throw away this little bit of color, but the color is very expensive. The clear glass in the furnace comes to us in its raw form, and it costs, let's just say, $2 a pound. Well, this colored glass comes to us already processed into glass, and it's rich and dense, very, very dense. So you could pull this and stretch this and stretch this and stretch this, and it will always be a white line, right? It's very, very rich. And so we want to be efficient with our colors. So you can see now that he's gotten that hot, the white got hot and the clear, and they have melted together thoroughly. And now he's going to roll it on the table and smooth it out so there's no more texture. He is ultimately going to blow this bubble up bigger and bigger and bigger after they get all the color on it right where he wants it to be. He's going to blow this into a large bubble, and then he's going to squish it flat so it's going to be kind of oval shape. And then we'll put a bottom in it where it will sit on the table, attach a new pipe to the bottom, and break it free of the pipe. And then he's going to open that up and make kind of a vase form. There's some of his works. You can see the kind of pattern work that are on it right there in the gallery. I think the top of it will kind of have a wavy lip.
I'm trying to set it up for the mold. Wow.
So are you changing the form a little so the wrap won't go right on top of it? Yeah.
Aluminum mold. Okay. It's good to go. All right, see.
So oftentimes we blow the bubble into certain forms to help give it some texture. And so on the floor, you'll see these aluminum-looking cups. And there's a great big one here, and he's going to drop that bubble into that form, and he's going to blow really firm for probably 10 or so seconds, and it'll push against the surface of that optic mold. We call it an optic mold. And if you notice from the top, it's kind of got this pattern to it. And so you'll see he's going to drop it in there, and he's going to push down, and he's going to blow really firm, and at the same time he's trying to keep the pipe centered in the middle of the form. And what that bubble's doing is it's pushing against the mold and it's creating that kind of textured pattern. So you can see now that it has the kind of the, high spots and low spots. And he's going to bring that to the table.
Kind of tapering it.
He's going to push it off the pipe a little bit. And then he's going to put another wrap on top of here. And the wrap going on with the texture is going to change the way that it looks, change the way that it works.
Yeah. Start heating it up.
Quick flash.
Yeah, heating.
Ready?
On heat.
You broke it. Absolutely. We'll keep those pieces and you can use them over and over again. Yeah.
I'm moving still.
So here comes the second wrap of 3. So you make that connection and then just lift and then roll and let that threader move it just along so that you end up with a real nice even wrap. So because when it wrapped on, it had that kind of high slots and low spots, it only touched on the high spot. And now as he's in there and it's heating up, the wrap is breaking at each intersection. Where it goes from one high spot to the next high spot, it's gotten hot and it's pulled its way back. So instead of being a wrap now, it's dots. That wrap broke apart and it's only connected at the high spots. And so this is a very interesting way to get just a dot of color on the surface. So he's going to go back into the mold, re-emphasize the ridges so that this third and final wrap will continue to create just the dots.
Opposite side of the color this time.
So it sounds like he wants to go back into that mold again and reinforce those ridges so that the wrap goes on and creates those dots. If the ridges are rounded, then sometimes it just gets hot and melts into the low spot. So you can see T is being very deliberate about the shape that she's preparing and how far off the pipe it is and how hot it is. So he got that hot. He's going to squish those little dots. They were kind of raised on the surface, so he rolled it on the table to kind of squish them down in. That's probably a good move because it might get caught on those and start wiggling around funny. But we do all kinds of stuff here. Seneca Studios is a nonprofit dedicated community. We do a lot of programming that's just public, that anybody and everybody can come participate in. We do programming in schools. We do outreach programming with all kinds of different underserved communities and different places. Tomorrow we're celebrating Veterans Day, and we've invited veterans and their families and active service members to come for free programming, and we're booked all day long. So from 10 o'clock to 8 o'clock tomorrow, we're going to have a studio full of veterans celebrating Veterans Day and their service for our community. So for those of you who are watching online, if you have questions, we are monitoring the chat. You can ask a question and type it in, and they'll get it out to me, and I can ask Rees. But for everybody who's here, if you have questions for Rees or for any of us here, feel free to speak up. We got all the answers. So the colors are very deceptive, right? The clear glass comes out of the furnace, it's glowing orange. It's not orange, it's crystal clear. And then the colors that you see them apply, they're changing, right? That didn't look yellow, but now that it's pulled out thin, you can see that it's cooled rapidly and it's become a bright yellow. So the wrap that they just put on will not look yellow until it cools back down. So the colors can be terribly deceiving in the middle of the process. You might be blowing something and think, well, this is gorgeous. And then as it cools, you're like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And then the same thing happens in the other way. You make something and you'll be like, ugh, that thing's gross. And then you put it in the oven and it cools down slow, and the next day you pull it out and you're like, hey, that's surprising. So it takes a long time to understand how to achieve the colors that you want in your mind, because it doesn't look that way when it's hot. And it's only when it cools off that you can really see it. So Rees is going to use the table to influence that pattern further. You can see he's kind of peeling out in place, and it's starting to twist and move a little bit. So by rolling in one direction and sliding back and causing a little extra friction, it's twisting that pattern a little bit. So again, it's about understanding the temperature and keeping things balanced and using these, the laws of physics and the table and the wooden tools and the metal tools to help us to achieve the patterns and shapes that we're looking for. So he's got all the color he needs now. He's going to influence that pattern and get it all nice and hot through and through, and then he's going to start blowing that bubble bigger and bigger and bigger. There it goes.
Trying to keep it centered at the same time.
Yeah, maintaining balance throughout is critical. And you can see the more times he goes in and out of the heat, the more it wants to cook back to smooth again. So do what? That's probably about maybe 4 pounds of glass. It looks heavier than that, doesn't it? Right? Because it's thick, it's solid. But if you were just to have it in your hand, hold it, it would feel like 4, maybe 5 pounds. But if you put it on a stick that's 1 foot long and you hold it a foot away, it doubles. So then it feels like 10. And then if you move your hand another foot away, it doubles again from 10 to 20. So you can see he's holding it close to 2 feet away. So it may be 5, but it feels like 20. And then if that pipe gets hot and you move your hand further away, it may feel like 40. So you want to always try to be as close to it as you can be without burning yourself.
Hang it over the edge.
So you can see the pattern and how the original white wrap has kind of twisted into the groove, and how those second wraps kind of stacked up and created those kind of dots that are on top of each other. So T's taking it, she's hooked up a blow hose so that she can blow. We never really blow when we're in the oven heating things up. We really only blow when we're out here, where we can keep a good eye on it, we can cool it where we don't want it to move. And so in this moment, Rees is squeezing with the jacks to define the top. Ultimately, where he's touching it now will be the top of the vase. When this is all said and done, that will be the top. Where he's touching it now, that's going to be the bottom. And as he's squeezing, and he's asking for air. And so if you look at T, she's puffed up like chipmunk, right? She's got pressure in her cheeks, and she's pushing on it from the inside. So the bubble got a little bit bigger there, but it's thick, and she was blowing hard. You really do have to blow harder than you think, because you're pushing on it. You know, you're not inflating it, so to speak. You're just pushing on it from the inside with the pressure. If you inflate something, it's usually pushing back at you, right? This isn't pushing back. Once you put the air in there, it's no longer going to come back out. So So Rees has defined the area that's going to be the top of the vase. And at some point, we have to get it free of the pipe, right? We have to take it off of the pipe. And so that area that he was just touching it, that's where they'll break it when the time is right, which is weird to say. Everything we make, we've got to break it to get it off of the pipe. You can see they're still inflating it slowly. He's making sure that that area at the top is going to break in a very predictable way. So he's using these jacks to put a really defined and deliberate crease in it. Understanding the heat and keeping it balanced, right? And that's the name of the game. And keeping it hot is efficient. If you allow it to get cold, and then you have to go reheat it, it takes a long time to reheat it. So it may still look like it's moving around and they're going back to heat it more because they want to just keep it in a good spot, a good temperature range so they can continue to work it and it doesn't get cold in anywhere specific. He's asked for light air, so oftentimes we'll say blow harder, or start light, and then you increase as it starts to cool. He's using that paper tool to kind of shape it and cool it simultaneously, and he's just watching it go. He wants that bubble to keep growing. It's pushing forward. You can see that that pattern is still very dark. It's still very rich in color. All right, so he's blown it out to a point that he's satisfied with the thicknesses of the walls of the bubble, and so now he's going to use his cork to squish it. So he's going to push on it. It's falling off center because you can't turn while you're doing that, so you can see how much it's really moving. And he's having her blow while he's squeezing it. So that's how you take a symmetrical form and make it a little asymmetrical. Just give it a little squish. You really have to make sure that the area that you want it to break is deliberate and precise. So in the process of getting that really hot and squishing it and letting it stretch, that neckline, we call it, got a little, looks like it got a little bit to his disliking. So he wanted to go back and make sure that that was right where it needed to be. So when it comes time to break it, it doesn't break in an unpredictable way. Sometimes if that thing, the neck is a little crooked, when you decide to break it, the crack will run the wrong direction. So where they're touching it now will ultimately be the bottom, where it sits on the table. So they're blowing a little bit, and now pushing on it to make the bottom of the vessel. So that's where it will sit on the table. And now they're going to transfer. They're going to take this from the pipe so that they can take the opening and make the top and make that larger. So this is an interesting moment in the process where you're blowing, and you're stretching it away from the pipe, and then you allow it to cool down and stiffen up. You make sure you know where it's going to stand, how it will sit flat on the table. And now they're going to gather some more clear glass on the end of a solid rod, and they're going to attach that to the bottom. So there's a moment where you're attached to both the pipe and what we refer to as the punty, this solid rod that Tatara is going to gather some clear glass on it now. So they've got this bit of glass that's on the end of a solid rod, and it's nice and warm, so he's pressed it on. He's going to put a little line in there, so he has a very controlled way to break it free later. Right? Just as important to break it free of the pipe in a controlled way, we're going to have to break it again to get it off of the punty rod. So they've put a little bit on there. There's a moment where he can make some adjustments to make sure that it's rolling true. So the pipe is rolling, the piece is rolling, and now the punty. We're all rolling in line with one another. Making sure that their temperatures are good. Most of the time when we want it to break, we'll add a little stress on purpose by putting a little drop of water. So Rees has used his tweezers, put a little drop of water right at that line, and then he just barely tapped the pipe, and it broke in that very specific place. So if you remember back to the beginning of this piece, it started with a chunk of white glass, and the bubble went into that white glass. And now there's all this color on the surface, on the outside that you can see, but if you look inside, it's just going to be white, because the bubble started inside of a white mass of glass. So to get pattern on the inside and the outside is another even more complex process. So I think what Rees is going to do here is get the lip of this hot. He's going to wrap a new color, a whole new different color just to the lip, so that the vessel terminates in a very brightly kind of different color on the top.
I think we just open it.
Oh, maybe not. No lip. All right, so they're just going to go for it. They're not going to put the colored wrap on it. I think it got a little thinner than they may have thought. So they're just going to go for it. They're just going to get the lip hot, and they're going to open it up bigger and bigger. So in the last moments of this piece, it'll be a pretty dramatic ending, because he's going to let, the laws of nature and the fluid nature of the material do a little bit of the decision making here in the final moments. He does want it looks like he does want to trim it a little bit, so he's cutting a little bit of that irregular lip off. And now he's going to get it hot and open it up. And then in the very final moment, he's going to let centrifugal force help, and he'll just spin a little bit faster while it's hot, and the opening will just open up on its own, and then you can kind of point it towards the floor and drape it like you might a handkerchief. Right? And it'll have a little bit of movement up at the top. So you can see what's hot, it's glowing. So he's going to lift with the jacks, and he's going to touch a little bit with the wooden paddle to make sure that it's a little flat up there. And then while it's still hot, go in there and keep it hot, right? So they can open that further. So like I said earlier, it's a really team-oriented thing. We have to know the process before we start. Everybody in the room kind of already understands what this piece is going to end up being. There's a lot of communication that's going on, right, between everybody involved. And in the final moments, we have to break it free and put it into an oven to cool off. We can't simply sit it on the table. It'll cool too fast and break. So it's got to go into an oven. And this is going to happen quick, right? It's going to happen just in the next couple of moments. Rees is going to use a torch to kind of add heat in a very specific place. Then he's going to go back into the heat and he's going to get that lip nice and hot and he's going to spin and let centrifugal force open it up and he'll drape it. They'll probably torch it a little bit and that'll be it. And they'll break it free into Kevin's hands. So Kevin is already ready. He's got the protection on so he can reach into the oven and set it down. So here we go. He's going to get that lip hot. He's going to let it spin. He's going to open the doors. And in the final moments, we'll see this thing come to its finale. Like a handkerchief, you can slow down and just let it drape. Depending on how fast he spins, you can see he spun a little quickly for a moment and it kind of opened back up. You can give it a little nudge. He wants this kind of oval thing, so you can see he nudged it on those oval sides just a little bit so that it'll be a little bit less of a round form and it's got a little bit more of that. So there's not much time, you know, if they stay out here for probably more than another 15 seconds or so, it might get a little cold and it might crack. Little drop of water right in that spot where he wants it to break and a little tap and it'll break free in a very predictable way. Kevin's gloves are a little warm. He's got a hold of it, and into the oven it goes. You can see how that pattern expanded and stretched. That's lovely. Nice move, sir. Excellent piece. Nice job, Rees. Good job, team. So thank you, guys. We're going to let you probably take a few minutes as a break, and then he's going to dive in and do another one. I think this next one will be a platter. He's going to let it spin really wide and do a kind of a wider platter. But again, it'll probably be a color, an overlay of another color, a bunch of clear, and then 3 wraps on top to create that pattern that he likes so much. A consistent pattern that goes all the way around and around, and then one on top of the optics to give it those dots and that kind of spotted look. So, if you have any questions,
We're a nonprofit dedicated to education, dedicated to community, and we use glass art and the creative process to help people to heal and to become interested in the visual arts, to become interested in science. A lot of our programming is focused around STEM concepts, STEAM concepts really, to include the arts. And we are a public access studio here for everyone. Seneca Studios was founded in 2010. We started off in program in early 2011, and we have over 30,000 people come and participate. The brand really illustrates community and bringing together the primary elements in community. We offer glass blowing opportunities, we offer flame working classes and workshops, and we also offer kiln forming classes. We've done programming for domestic abuse survivors, we've done programming for homeless kids and people who are looking to heal. We've used our process to help people to express themselves. One of our probably more powerful stories is about a young woman named Alexis who came in and she had never worked with glass, and we did a kiln forming project, and she and her brother and several other students cast their ideas into thick pieces of glass, and she made a heart that helped her to express the loss of her father. Had a pacemaker. It was a real interesting piece, and it ended up going at auction to someone who had also lost their father, and it was a really powerful moment for all of us
She was struggling to express herself, and we helped her to find her voice and to make something that she could not only see how it could help her tell her story, but also to connect in the community and help someone else kind of heal through glass art. As Seneca Studio presents to foundations and to donors and receives support, oftentimes the support is specific to a project where we're bringing in kids that are connected with those foundations or with those donors, and that money goes specifically to offering this opportunity to people who wouldn't have it otherwise. The organization has a sustainability model where we generate revenue in many ways, and that revenue is what covers our overhead and keeps the organization going. The support oftentimes is specific to a program, so that 100% of people's donations go towards offering programming to people. Our outreach and our culture of outreach really drives us to find funding outside of that so we can bring the community in and offer programs specifically to our community. Thank you. We are a determined group, and I pledge that any support offered will be used in endeavors in the spirit of community, with kindness and generosity, and with fearlessness.
Alright, you guys, welcome back. We are broadcasting Rees Bowen's demonstration tonight. So this demonstration technically goes until about 9 p.m., but we are going to be only broadcasting one more of these pieces. So if you guys are interested in continuing to watch, you'll just have to come down to Magnolia Avenue. Don't forget, we are on Magnolia Street in Fort Worth. And we're going to be doing probably 2 more of these pieces tonight. So Rees is super efficient with his color application, and they've already started on the second piece. And for those of you who are just tuning in, we will have this recording up on our Facebook and YouTube pages if you want to go back and watch that first piece. So Rees regularly rents at our studio. He's been renting here for a couple of years, I think. Yeah. And so he and Tatara work together pretty frequently. So T is pretty used to what Rees needs and wants. But one of the factors that we have kind of going on tonight is it's pretty nice and chilly out, which means that they've got to work kind of paying attention to that cold breeze that's coming in. So while Tatara and now Kevin are prepping color, Rees is going to start the piece. So Rees is gathering from our 2100 degree oven. And in this furnace, we basically keep the glass clear and hot all the time. It makes it very easy to work with. And it's clear is a really nice base for using a bunch of different colors. So Rees is rolling the hot glass along metal table called a marver. That's M-A-R-V-E-R. And the stainless steel is basically cooling the glass down, but it's also shaping the glass. So as Rees is working, you're going to see this glass color kind of disappear. Right now it looks bright yellow thanks to the heat. But as he's continuing to work with it, that color is going to darken, and we'll see it go clear, so it'll slowly become translucent. Now Rees has added a little bit of air into the pipe. Those of you who are online, y'all can see the little bubble there in the end. Anytime we're making hollow vessels or bowls and things like that, generally tends to start this way. So very often when you come out of that furnace, the pipe is pretty hot. We're working with stainless steel pipes and rods, and the water really helps cool that off. But you will notice that our glass blowers don't have very much heat protection on. Really, it's about comfort in the studio, and we just make sure not to wear synthetic material. So everyone's wearing natural fibers, very often cotton. But in terms of protecting the skin, that yellow sleeve that Rees has on is what most people tend to work as they get larger in scale. So Kevin is heating up a blob of color, and Rees has prepped a bubble, left it a little on the cooler side. Kevin is getting this blob of color nice and hot, and then he's gonna just kind of drop it on top, cut it off, and then his process is gonna be to slowly push that color on that bubble. So this is called an overlay. It's basically overlaying the color onto that nice clear bubble. Now there's some super efficient teamwork happening here, where Tatara is prepping the next bit of color. If you guys have ever been to our studio and you've taken classes with us, most likely you've used frit in our studio, which is basically crushed up glass. Now, Tatara is using a different kind of color. It looks like a big rod of color or a bar of color, and that's what's going to help us do that overlay process. So the bar is brought up at about up to about 1,000 degrees or so that it doesn't crack. It's picked up on what we call a punty rod, which is the rod that Tatara has in her hand. And then she's going to heat it up and then shape it into a nice shape for dropping it onto this bubble. Now in the meantime, Rees is pushing that color back on the bubble. The goal is to get a nice thin skin of that color laid over the bubble nice and evenly. Notice that our glass blowers continuously go into these reheating chambers over and over and over. Glass cools off as you're working with it and you're touching it to cold steel, which means that we've got to reheat it if we want to keep moving it around. So Rees has got that color pushed back. This looks like it's a white base. And then the color that T is using, I'm not quite sure. The heat kind of changes the color and makes the color harder to see. But I can tell that what Rees has got is something in the white range, maybe an alabaster or white color. And then Rees, T, do you know what color this is on the end here?
This is either an emerald green, transparent.
Okay.
Oh, this is a purple.
It's a purple. Okay, purple. And the
The lagoon is last.
got it. So
Everyone's curious about the last color? About lagoon? Yeah.
so it's white as the base, transparent purple is what Tatara's got. So that's going to be a transparent. Yeah, so a transparent purple and then opaque orange, green, and yellow. Okay. So we'll see that process when they start picking up those colors for wraps. But yeah, our base color is going to be white. Now when glassmakers are working at the bench, you'll notice that they can't really use their hands, right? Because the glass is super hot. And so our glassmakers tend to use these different tools in order to shape the glass. You'll see Rees and Tatara and Kevin using these tools throughout the demonstration. It's kind of a bummer actually not to be able to use your hands with this material, but it's probably a good thing. Now Rees is letting that glass chill out because he doesn't want it to move when they're dropping this color on it. So you'll notice that while Tatara is kind of heating up the color, Rees is letting his glass cool off so it doesn't move. Now there's a limit to how much you can cool off the glass before it starts causing you issues. The glass, of course, it should really not get too cold or it'll end up wanting to crack. Super nice and gooey. And then Rees is going to use the back of the jacks. It's called the strap of the jacks to push that color on, at least to start it on its way. Now there's a long way to go to push an overlay on. He has started it at the bench, but he's got to push it all the way on. So some selective heating in the reheating chamber, and then we're going to see him push it on with the marber. So while he's doing that, Tatara is pulling out some of that extra color to save it, pulling it into a nice thin rod, and she's just going to stick it aside for now. Now you guys, if you are online and you're watching this demo and you're busy tonight and you missed this demonstration, fret not. We do this once a month on the second Friday of every month. So feel free to come out for one of our demonstration nights. They're absolutely free, brought to you through grants from a bunch of different organizations. So bring your kids, your spouse, your loved ones, and come hang out with us. Rees is the artist we're featuring for this month. And then for next month, we're going to be featuring our team. So those of you who have been here in December with us, you'll know that we light the tree up with hot glass. So that will be one of the parts of our demonstration in December. We'll be lighting up the tree. And then we will also be making a big snow globe. So for those of you snow globe collectors out there, you may enjoy that demonstration. Now, I don't know what form Rees is going for, but a big part of his work is color and pattern and texture. So we're going to find out together what form this will end up being. Now don't forget, you guys, if you have questions about this, if you're curious about this process, we do answer questions on our live stream. So if you're watching this online and you have questions about this process, feel free to put your questions in the chat. There you go. Now at this point, we're kind of in a prep period. We're prepping a bunch of color. And for Reese's color, it does take quite a long time to set up and prep and get everything situated. Because a big part of his pieces are complex color applications. So if you're in the neighborhood and you want to come watch, we are going to be demonstrating in person until about 9 p.m. tonight. This is also a great opportunity to come and check out some of his work in person. We've got a bunch of pieces in the gallery for you to check out. So feel free to stop by and hang out for a little bit. It is cold outside, but it's real nice and toasty in the hot shop tonight. Now, for those of you who are kind of curious about glassmaking and you're watching this video and you want to try this, we do teach classes. That's one of the primary reasons that Seneca Studio exists, is to teach the public about glassmaking. So if you're curious, you want to try it out, come and check us out. We are the only studio in the DFW Metroplex that teaches people how to do this, as well as offers rentals. So we're the perfect place to pick up a new hobby if you're kind of curious about glass as a hobby. There are a number of glass studios in our area, in Dallas and Grapevine and things like that, and a lot of them offer glass blowing classes. So we encourage you to try it. Regardless of where you are in the Metroplex, glass is for everyone. And if you find yourself kind of a little bit hesitant to work with hot glass, nervous about heat, we do offer glass classes in the kiln forming studio, which is a studio where you don't have to work with direct heat. You're working with sheets of glass in that studio, cutting it, assembling it, and then putting it into a kiln. And then if you want to try something else with heat, we also offer classes in our flame working studio. So a little smaller scale than this, but tons of fun as well. Now Tatara's prepping a bit of glass. She's heating up this color and shaping it kind of into a little pencil shape. That little pencil shape is going to kind of be used to sort of draw on the glass. So she's shaping it up, she's putting it into our pipe warmer to kind of keep it nice and toasty. And then she's going to continue prepping the other bits of glass. So Rees is gathering up. He's giving that bubble a nice thin, clear coating of glass before we add all of these wraps on. Now you'll notice that there's a very dramatic shift in color once the glass blower gathers, that color will dissipate and change and start cooling down as the glassmaker is working on the piece. So of course the glass is not orange at this moment. What we're seeing is heat. So while Rees is shaping things up, Tatara's picking up color in the background, and the color looks like a little chunk of rod. It's basically a tiny little bar of color. And remember that this color is not at room temperature. We leave it at about 1,000 degrees so that it doesn't crack. Sudden heat and sudden cooling of glass causes cracks and breaking. And so we gotta minimize that as much as possible. So Rees is using one of my favorite tools called a newspaper. And the newspaper is a tool which is really awesome because you can put your hand really, really close to the glass and allow things to kind of conform to the shape of your hand. So really great tool. The main thing that stops the newspaper from burning is the water that's added on. So the water saturates the newspaper, prevents it from burning up too fast. And the glass just kind of rides on the tool with a little bit of steam. So again, Tatara's kind of prepping everything. Rees is really just letting the glass kind of chill out. I'm not sure if he's planning on gathering again. You're gathering again? Two more? Okay.
2 more times?
Go big or go home. So as you guys can see, there's a ton of teamwork that happens with glassmaking. It's really hard to work by yourself in this studio. Very much a team sport. So Rees is going back in. He's putting another layer of clear, and this is really now just for volume. He's adding more glass so that he can make a bigger form. Now that steel, when you're coming out of the furnace, is pretty hot. So we've got to generally use a pipe cooler to chill things out so that we can get as close to the glass as we possibly can. Rees is using a wooden block to shape the glass into sort of a Q-tip shape. It's a really nice basic shape to blow glass with. So these blocks have a similar property to newspaper in that you want to keep it kind of wet so that the glass is not burning up the wood too fast. So the glass ends up riding really on a layer of steam. And so it's kind of cool that steam is shaping up the glass. So a really, really great tool, newspaper, and these wooden blocks are pretty amazing. Really great for shaping up glass. So because we're working with making something hollow, we're working on a boulon form, you're going to see Rees inflate this piece every so often just to enlarge and change the shape. So Rees is planning on taking another gather on this piece. And so we're going pretty big. Once that last gather is on, I think he's going to be starting to add those color wraps that we were talking about earlier.
Is it on? Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Clifton Crawford back on the microphone. Let me get it all set up here, make sure it's working. Yeah, double. I'm all mic'd up now. I used to have one. It was more of a Cyndi Lauper one because I'm a little older than you, but. Can y'all hear me now? How's that sound? Got the microphone back on. Mic check. Microphone check. Well, once again, I want to thank Rees for being here. Appreciate you, man. Good stuff. He's got his last gather out of the furnace for this piece. I think this one's going to be more of a platter. He's going to spin this one open a little more broad. But before he does that, he's going to shape it up and blow that bubble up a little bigger and apply several wraps. I think he's going to put 3 wraps on this using the thread wrap, make a nice fine line. So for those of you guys online, I want to thank you for tuning in. Seneca Studios is a nonprofit dedicated to community. We do all kinds of classes. We do all kinds of public workshops. We do programming in arts and culture. We do outreach programming in health and wellness. We do outreach programming in education. We work with a bunch of great partners in the community. Glass is an incredible connector, right? Glass is an incredible material that does so much for humanity, and we take it for granted, which I think is an interesting compliment to the material. Amplifies our vision. It helps us to see small things and things that are very far away. It helps us to put our vision into focus. And it connects us through fiber optics, and it has accelerated our world dramatically. Glass art, dates back hundreds of years at an elite level and thousands of years all over the world. It's an incredible material, and we love it. And if you've ever been interested in coming to take a class or do a workshop, check out our website. We do all kinds of programming in glass blowing, where we pull the glass out of the furnace, as you see tonight. It's already melted, it's in a puddle in there, and then we can keep it hot and blow and sculpt and shape it into all wonderful things. We also do classes and programming in flame-worked glass. And flame-worked glass, you heat it up in front of a flame, in front of a very hot torch. So there's several ways to work it in front of a flame. And then we also do programming and workshops in kiln-formed glass. Kiln-formed glass is quite different because you rarely touch it when it's hot and gooey. You just stack up sheets or apply patterned little bits and create a design and place that design in an oven and heat the oven up, and it'll fuse together. Make all kinds of interesting shapes. You can cast it into molds. And truly, the contemporary glass movement is very focused on cast glass, glass that happens in a kiln. We refer to it as kiln forming because you can fuse and slump and drape and cast in an oven. You just plan the melt, and then you get it hot, you go to bed, and you come back the next day, and it's all done and cooling off. We also do offer a few classes in cold working, where you might grind it or cut it or engrave it or work it once it cools down. Oftentimes artists will work it before they heat it up. They'll cut it into forms and shapes and then heat it up and fuse it together, and then they'll polish it and engrave it or electroplate it or mirrorize it or do some other process in the cold working studio. So here at Seneca Studios, we do things in glass blowing, flame working, kiln forming, and cold working. It's a fascinating thing to see it hot and moving and gooey, but it's every bit as fascinating to carve lenses and to create really intricate optics in the cold shop. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here tonight. If you have any questions, just holler at me. I got all the answers right there. Right there. 49.
I have a question.
Yes.
Why doesn't the bubble collapse?
Why doesn't the bubble collapse? Because we keep turning, right? If we stop turning, gravity's going to drop and droop this thing towards the floor. But it's round, and it's got some kind of structure to it. The material has surface tension, right? Same as other liquids, right? Glass is not a liquid. It is an amorphous solid, but it has this kind of surface tension that kind of pulls it smooth. And as you get things that are all textured hot, they just melt and pull themselves smooth again. So when it's round and you keep it balanced, it doesn't want to collapse, right? The bubble is not squeezing the air out like a balloon. You know, blow a balloon up and it just deflates because it squeezes the air out. Once you push the air in, it doesn't want to squeeze it back out. It's just pushing on it from the inside. So Rees is shaping it on the table, the marver, to get it into a form that he'll be ready to accept the first of the 3 wraps. Tatara has a bit of white glass on the end of a rod, and she's going to get it just the right temperature and just the right shape so that it will trail off into one long little thread. So T's shaping this up into a bit of a point so that when they make the connection, it'll be a small connection, and then she'll back away from it, and as Rees rolls, it will just trail on and wrap onto the surface. The temperatures are important in this technique because if the surface of the bubble that Rees is rolling on the threader right there, if that's too cold, the glass won't want to stick. So you got to be just the right temperature so that it'll stick and it'll pull and it'll all stick together. It's a team effort, right? It's a team process. You can do a lot of things by yourself, but it takes many people to make complex things. And this is a very interesting pattern. The only way to do it is with multiple people. So you can see Rees is pausing on purpose. He's letting it fall and move a little bit. And then T's coming over with this wrap in probably about 5 or 6 seconds. And we'll see this thing wrap on. temperatures are real important, so tea's really... There we go, make that connection, and then pull away, and then Rees is rolling. He's rolling it on this thread wrap machine. It's kind of these bearings that are at a little canter. So as he rolls the pipe, it slowly creeps slowly in one direction. And then as he's going, he's pulling back and pulling back a little bit. You see it threads nice down to one little spot. So there's the first of the 3 wraps. It's a nice spiral of a white stripe of really intensely colored glass. So Rees is going to get this hot, and he's going to marver and kind of roll it on the table to smooth it out a little bit. And then we'll prepare the next wrap. I think they're using some pretty bright colors. That one was white, and he's going to go on top of that with like some yellow glass and some green glass, and then I think some kind of like an iris amber colored glass. I want to take this moment to recognize all those out there that have been a part of Seneca Studios and supporting our efforts. The team makes the dream, right? It takes us all to make it happen. And so Rees, as our visiting artist, is being assisted by Tatara Siegel, who's the education and outreach coordinator here. She does all of the coordinating for our programming in the schools. We do some wonderful programming with great partners in the community. Tomorrow, actually, is our Veterans Day celebration, because today is Veterans Day. And so we're hosting and sponsoring all veterans and their active service members and their families to come to the studio tomorrow for free programming. So tomorrow's going to be a great day here at Seneca Studios. She also does stuff with the school districts and with other partners like One Safe Place. We've done some stuff with Project Success. We've done some stuff all over town over the years. Rees is also being assisted by Kevin McGehee. He's our studios coordinator, so he's the one who makes sure this place stays up and running. Trains the staff, makes sure everybody knows what's going on and how to do their jobs. Behind the scenes, there is Brandy, who's working the program that helps to organize and broadcast this demonstration. Heidi Childers is our operations director. She's in the gallery tonight. Jean Fernandez is here. She was on the mic a moment ago. She's our visiting artist and residency coordinator. Amy's here. Kanan's here. Krista's here. There's a whole bunch of the team here. It takes everybody to make it happen, and I'm really grateful to be a part of such a wonderful team. All right, so this next wrap, Rees wants to create a different bit of a pattern. So he's dropped that bubble into what we refer to as an optic mold. And he's blowing so that it takes the shape of that mold and creates some ridges. He was pushing nice and firm to try to create that texture. So this next wrap will touch the high sides of this texture and not go down into the dips. And so as he heats it up, he'll spin a little bit. Centrifugal force will pull it away, and it will fire break that little wrap and create little dots. It's a really cool technique. I really like the way that it looks. You can go back in there, cap the pipe, and push down a little bit just to reinforce those ridges a little bit. So the glass that we use, the glass that we melt in our furnace, is a spruce pine. It's the new formula that Spruce Pine has just put out. It's actually not a new formula. It's just a a product that has become more affordable lately, the Pete Vanderland formula, who's the pioneering glass maker in his own right. So we're melting spruce pine PWV in our furnace, and then the colored glass that we're applying to the surfaces comes to us from Germany, so Reichenbach and Kugler colors, and they're incredibly dense. But when hot, they're a bit deceptive. Now you can see that this piece has a white wrap. That white is pretty true, right? Even when it is at 1100 or 1200 degrees, it still looks white. But the other colors, the yellows look brown, the reds look almost black, the blues look kind of green. So the colors are a little deceptive when they're hot. So here we go with the second wrap. So this wrap's going on to the optic texture. So it's really only touching and fusing to the high spots, the ridges. And when Rees goes in to heat this, it will stay fused to the high spots, and then he's going to roll at just the right speed, and it will kind of break free, and it won't stick into the low spots. So in this moment right here, he's kind of spinning a little bit faster, and it kind of raises that wrap up from the low spots. So that color looks like it's going to be orange. It looked really dark brown, but as it's cooling, I can see that that is looking a bit orange. So that wrap is going to be bright orange on top of that white, and then this next one, we'll see what color it is. Looks like an iris color, the way it's turning transparent when it's hot.
I never know what any of these colors are. He doesn't really talk about it.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not really sure what color it is. He just tells me to pick that one up. But with experience, you can kind of see how the colors, heat up and cool off. Some of the colors are very interesting, how they will go transparent when they're hot. They'll change dramatically. They call it a striking color, and it'll look one way when it's cold, and then look another way when it's very hot, and then another way after it cools back down. So it takes years to really understand how the colors will react with one another, because they're made with metals, right? The silica, sodium, and calcium that is the kind of original recipe, or the primary components to a soft soda lime glass. When you melt it with a little bit of gold, it'll turn kind of pink. If you melt it with a little bit of copper, it'll turn a little bit blue. If you put cobalt oxide in there, it turns cobalt blue. So different metals change the way that it reacts and reflects light, and therefore how we see it. So when they get hot, they look even more deceptive. So when you touch them together, when they're hot, they will react to one another and create new color. If one color has a lot of silver in it and another color has a lot of gold in it, where they touch, it will create a reaction and create new color. So it takes a long time to understand that. The chemistry of the flame where we melt it can kind of dictate and ultimately change the reaction. So it's kind of infinite and endless. It's very hard to really truly predict exactly what color is going to come out every single time.
Okay. Yeah.
So here comes the third wrap. Rees is gonna accept this wrap, and they'll touch and pull back and lift and let it wind on. The further away you are from the piece as it winds on, the thinner the wrap gets. So if you want to keep it even, you have to stay the same distance away. And as things trail off, sometimes you have to get closer. If it looks like it's getting thinner, you have to get closer. That looked really even. That looked is going to heat that wrap up, and it'll break in between the optics, right? It'll cut free as he's spinning it. He's letting centrifugal force kind of pull on it. You don't want to spin too fast because they might kind of want to shoot off. Sometimes they're just barely on there. So, in this final kind of influence of the pattern, Rees is going to come over to the table and he's going to roll it on the table and he's going to kind of twist it. So right now the optics run straight from the top to the bottom, straight down the side of the piece. And he wants to cook that in a little bit, and then he's going to twist it a little bit so that pattern will swirl and kind of move around the piece. So it's coming over here to the marver, and he's probably going to just roll back and forth and even that out. And then as he peels out and stays in one spot on the table, the friction causes that pattern to twist ever so slightly. So he's going to kind of keep rolling in that clockwise manner and kind of let the friction on the tip cause the middle to twist ever so slightly. Looks like a cactus. That's awesome. It looks super cool. So as that white goes up and down and in and out of the optics, as it twists, it's kind of compressing it, kind of squeezing it together, which makes the pattern kind of double back on itself. It's very interesting the way that these wraps, when you stack them up, will create these kind of, I don't know, kind of snake skin looking textures and kind of crisscross looking patterns. They're lots of fun. And those are bright colors, right? That's a bright yellow, it's a bright green, I think it's a bright orange and a bright green. And then I don't know, I think the base of this one's purple. Yeah, smash it. Looking good. Nice move, sir. That looks really, really well. Looks really good. All right, so he's got the color where he wants it, so he's going to hand it off to T, and he's going to sit, take a little break from all that turning. Now they have all the material they need, all the color that they need, the pattern's right where he wants it, so he's just going to get it hot and shape it a little bit and start blowing and increasing the size of that bubble. Let's see what he might do. Trying to anticipate his next move. Looks like he's just gonna shape it a little bit, cooling the tip. Ultimately, when we blow glass, the pressure we create is gonna take the path of least resistance. So it's really about understanding the temperatures, keeping things balanced, and then blowing and allowing that path of least resistance to create the shape that we really are looking for. So keep it hot, even though it's still moving, and it could continue to blow and make that bubble bigger. The best thing to do here is to just keep it hot. Once you get that core heat in it and you can keep it even and balanced, you just keep it hot, you have a much better chance of really understanding how it's going to move and keeping it and allowing it to move into the shape that you want. I talked to Rees earlier about his path to glass making, and he did his degree at Texas Tech and found glass there. He then blew glass in London for a time and gained a lot of skills there, and then started a studio in Dallas with several other glass artists back in the mid-90s. I remember seeing him blow glass probably in 95 or 96 out in Dallas with Jim Bowen and the Martians, as we call it. We call the Ron Mars, the father and son team out there in Dallas. It's a small community of glassmakers. We all know each other. We've all had experiences with one another. We've all learned from one another. And it's really, Seneca Studios is here to continue that. and to share the knowledge and to encourage one another. We're here truly for all artists. We want all artists to succeed. No one here is, highlighted more than another. It's really about all of us together. So in this moment, Rees is using the jacks to define the neck, the area where ultimately he's going to break it free of the pipe. So he's having tea blow, he's cooling it so that that bubble will push its way into the thicker glass that's down at the bottom. It's going to reinforce that line. Where he's touching it right now will ultimately be the top. That will be the top or the edge of this platter. Once he spins it out, it's going to be way out on the sides. So, going to get that hot some more and blow that bubble bigger and wider down there into the bottom. Love you, babe. Bye, dear. All right, so again, he's having tea blow. She's puffed up like a chipmunk, squeeze in the air in. It's not about exhaling. When we blow glass, we're just simply creating pressure. And then we just give that pressure time to push and move the glass where we want it. You know where it's hot and you cool it where you don't want it to move, you can really control and put the glass right where you want it. It's a fascinating process to be a part of. It's very interesting to watch. Really emphasizes the moment, right? As every moment is a moment that could be disastrous towards the ultimate end of the piece. So you always have to be focused and in the moment. So a lot of communication that's happening in this process. We have to trust one another to really listen to understand, so that we can get it to be the shape that the gaffer wants it to be. Right now, this is Rees's piece. He's in charge, but he's trusting T as she takes it to the heat. Look at that. That really moved. That looks great. Get it hot, and you get it moving. It'll move. Hot glass, good. Cold glass, bad. Okay, so Rees has blown this bubble up big. He's got it nice and broad and kind of flat on the bottom. We'll see what he's going to do next. And then he's going to ultimately need to transfer this. Yeah, so he wants it to be a platter. So he's kind of keeping it balanced. He's spinning, and he's pointed up. And gravity's kind of pulling it back on itself. So this thing's getting a little wide. So we got nice and wide. So that'll be the bottom, kind of the base of this thing. Let it squat back on itself, and now they're looking at the bottom to try to define where is it going to sit on the table. So ultimately, when this is all said and done, that bottom is what we see, what's out here off the pipe. So he's preparing to transfer this piece. So there's always a moment in the process of blowing a vessel where we blow the bubble up, we define the bottom of the shape, and then we transfer the piece from the pipe to what we refer to as the punty. The blowpipe is hollow, right? We can blow through that tube to create that bubble, to make it bigger. In this moment, Tatara is gathering some clear glass out of the furnace onto a solid rod, the punty rod. So the punty is a point or a bridge, the punti. And we will attach the punty to the bottom of this form and break it free of the pipe. It's a really cool shape, just like it is. Sometimes I love the shapes halfway through, and I'm just like, let's just stop. That looks so good. So she's gathered out of the furnace and she's shaping the glass on the end of the pipe. She's pulling it off the pipe because there's lots of ways to do any of this, really. People have been doing this at an elite level for hundreds of years. So in this process, he wants this to be hot, and he wants some glass off the pipe. So he wants a lot of glass hanging off the pipe, and he's going to stick onto the pipe. It's really fused. He stuck that hot, so it's really stuck. And then he's putting a new line in it. He's kind of creasing down and creating a connection. We call this a sculpture punny, where it goes on hot, knowing that what we stuck to the bottom of the piece is not coming off in the hot shop. We can grind that free later in the cold shop, but in this moment, they just want to get a good connection, a good, firm, solid connection. He used the jacks to put a little crease in there so that it will break in a controlled way. And now they're communicating. He's chesting to see how stiff things were, and then Rees is going to put a little drop of water right where he wants it to break. Oftentimes we'll use a little drop of water so that we can be very deliberate about stressing it out, right? We stress it out in one place so that when we tap the pipe, it breaks in a very predictable way. Hey, how are you? Good. Hi there. There's some room over here if you guys want to come over a little closer. I'm kind of sitting in your way. And if you have questions, holler at me. I'm smart. I'm smart. We like to have a good time. You know, glass making, it's stressful, it's intense, it's a lot of fun. It's about, you know, a team. It's about working together. It's about community, and that's what Seneca Studios is about. We're here for all artists. We're here to elevate everybody in this community. So we really try to keep it light, to keep it real, and to, you know, to make it worth it. It's about the relationships. I think that ultimately, at the end of the day, we don't know where this is going to end up. You know, we don't know where in 10 or 15 years this whole thing is going to end up. The most important part about this is the people. You know, the journey is super important. The destination is unknown, but it's the company along the way, I think, that really we need to pay attention to and to embrace. So I want to thank everybody out there who's supportive of Seneca Studios, everybody involved in the programming that we do, anybody that's ever come and participated. Thank you guys for your support. And come back, you know, we do some fun stuff around here. And then this moment, that's gorgeous. Look at that. That's a beautiful piece of glass with a really interesting and colorful pattern on the surface. And in the final addition to color, Tatara has gathered a little bit, she's got a little bit of a color, looks like an ivory color. That she's getting hot. Rees has prepared the lip of this vessel in a kind of a really symmetrical and flat kind of way, so that when they apply this last wrap, it will only be on the lip. It's going to wind this wrap just on the lip. All right, Rees is ready. T's got it to the right temperature, so she's going to come around. They're going to attach that just to the lip and draw it off and wind slowly and try to get that on there as evenly as possible. And because the opening is small and ultimately will be much bigger, you know, you can wind it on a couple of times and let it spin around. And then when you take it back to the heat, it's going to melt and fuse into one even kind of application of color. And then when you stretch it and open it wider and wider, it'll spread out and it'll become very even. So it's got the color where he wants it on the lip. T's taking it, and she's going to get that lip nice and hot. And Rees has got the jacks in his hand, and he's going to come outside of the bench and open that opening bigger. He's got a paddle in his hand so he can kind of flatten that as he opens it. And it's very normal for one person to have the pipe for a time, to hand it off to somebody else, and to take turns kind of opening things and turning the pipe and carrying it back and forth to the heat. So Rees is opening, he's pressing that lip wrap on, that color is kind of squishing back against the area where it broke free, and then you keep it hot. So this won't take probably 3 or 4 more heats to open up, and ultimately in the final few moments he's going to spin the pipe relatively quickly, and it will get very broad and open up very wide, bigger than we can reheat it. Oftentimes people will ask what our limitations are. What's the biggest thing you can make? What's the heaviest thing you can make? And so there's a physical component, right? You're only as strong as you are, so you can only carry so much weight, so you can't get 100 pounds on the end of the pipe. And then you have to keep it hot, right? So if you go into this hole and you get it hot and then you come out and you let it stretch 6 feet long, it's not going to fit back in that hole. So we have to kind of recognize that we can only get so large and then keep it hot and then reheat it to make it hot again so we can keep working it. So in the final moments of this piece, Rees is going to spin it larger than we can reheat it. And so therefore, we will be done, and we will need to break it free of the punty and put it away. And the final limitation is, what can we put away, right? We can't simply put this thing here on the table and let it cool off, because it will shrink in an uneven way, it will crack and it will break. So everything we make has to go into an oven, has to go through the annealing process. So in the last few moments, Rees is going to spin this open. He's going to let it move around and let the nature of the material dictate some of the form. And then he's going to torch it a little bit, and then he's going to break it off the pipe. And then Kevin will probably catch it, and he'll bring it over and put it into the annealing oven. And so that's that final limitation. What can you fit in the annealing oven so that it will cool off in a controlled way? You can see that opening is getting larger. He's pushing down on that opening as we roll, making it bigger. Nice moves, looking good, team. That looks excellent. So Rees is feeling good about it. He's got it pretty wide open. So he's going to have Kevin suit up so that he can catch it. He's going to go in and heat it. He most likely will come back to the bench and use the torch to make sure he's got the heat right where he wants it, and then take one final heat and spin it open. But we'll see. I'm just making assumptions here. See what he does. Yep, he's come back out. He's going to come over and take this fluffy torch, as we call it. So he's kind of cooled the middle of the bubble, right? The middle section, and he's cooling the lip. He's torched the middle, and it's a little bit more even now. So he's gonna take it in for one final heat. This is a dramatic moment. This is one of those moments where you can really see the material move. Kevin's pretty ready. He's telling me to make sure I open up both doors when he comes over. Rees is really watching it. He's in there deep, getting all of it hot. And he's gonna spin slowly at first. And while it's heating up, you don't want to spin too quick because it'll flare out and open up too quickly. So it looks like he's pretty close. He's ready on the door. Let it go. Spin, spin, spin fast. Spins out nice and flat. And he's going to kind of slow the revolutions. And let gravity help. Roll slow. sometimes in this moment you can take a paddle and add a little bit of an influence. That looks lovely. So it's too big, right? It won't fit back in the hole to heat it up again. It's only going to get cooler. That torch will not get it hot enough to do a whole bunch more to it. So in this moment, you have to just accept that we're ready to put it away. A little bit of torch to make sure it doesn't get too cold. A little drop of water right where you want it to break free, and then just a little tap. Doesn't take much. Once you add that water to get it to break right where you want it to break. Just a light tap, doesn't take much. And then into the oven with it. Yeah, that looks great.
Thank you guys so much for joining the broadcast here at Seneca Studios. We are a nonprofit dedicated to education and community, and I want to recognize the Texas Commission on the Arts for their support, the City of Fort Worth, Arts Fort Worth for their consistent support to our organization. We do things in arts and culture, we do things in education, we do things in wellness, we have programming in the community, and we have public programming that everybody can come and participate in. And it's really an incredible place. It's the only one like it in the whole region. Seneca Studios is a very unique organization, and it takes everybody, right? It takes a village to keep it afloat. So if you can make a donation, find us online. We always have fun fundraisers and events around here. We've got upcoming things for our winter market in December, so check out our website, check out the calendar, and check out all that we have to offer. But I really want to thank those who have donated, and to all the foundations out there who've supported us. The Texas Commission on the Arts, the Arts Fort Worth, the Ann L. and Carol Green Rhodes Charitable Trust, the R4 Foundation, the J.E.S. Edwards Foundation, and everybody out there who's made a donation. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and come see us here at Seneca Studios.